Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. The U.S.-Iran confrontation must be taken seriously. The elimination of the dollar from the bilateral trade of China and Japan sets the stage for a drastic reduction in demand for dollar financing. That's one contributing element. If the euro goes into a panic collapse, that will immediately spread to the Swiss franc, the pound, and the dollar. And when it comes to the dollar, they want to be ready with a plan to have a war with Iran, get Iran to close the Straits of Hormuz, drive up the price of oil 300, 400, 500%, and with that create a huge artificial demand for the dollar, and they hope to stabilize the dollar. And maybe they have to do that fast before more oil-producing countries dump the dollar as the posted price of oil. So on December 2nd, Panetta said an Israeli attack on Iran would consume the Middle East in a confrontation, and this would be a conflict we would regret. The Israelis protested. Panetta then changed his tune, flying back on the doomsday aircraft from Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya, and basically wrapping up the Libyan and Iraqi wars, he thought or purported to think. He's flying back on the doomsday aircraft. He tells Scott Pelley of CBS News, "We will not allow Iran to get a nuclear bomb, and all options are on the table." What, asks Pelley, if the Israelis go first? And Panetta then says, "We have a common shared concern. This is a green light. This is carte blanche. This is a gesture of incalculable folly. This means you're essentially surrendering your initiative to somebody else. Basically, Israel will decide when and where, and if the U.S. makes war, nobody serious would do this. This is a complete amateur. This is Panetta. He's an idiot. He's a bungler. Anybody, even if you're an imperialist, you'd say, well, I'm going to decide that myself. I would warn everybody not to do anything without asking me first. But no, he's too little for that, superpower notwithstanding. So we got this stuff going on. In the background, we've got this Avigdor Lieberman, the foreign minister, and he is angry about European Union reports about discrimination against Arabs inside Israel. The Israelis are generally angry because there's been a lot of attention to discrimination against women inside the country. Lieberman has said that he will not have any peace talks with Syria, and the other thing, of course, is this flare-up that we reported at the time. Around December 15th, we had Defense Minister Barak and the security boss Yalon saying, we want Assad out in Syria in a couple of weeks. Assad has lost his legitimacy, they say. And this was when half of the State Department said the Assad regime is a dead man walking. Going on in the background, Foreign Affairs magazine, the upcoming issue, Matthew Kronig of Georgetown, I believe, writing in Foreign Affairs, article is entitled, "Time to Attack Iran, Why a Strike Now is the Least Bad Option." This has been attacked by Mearsheimer of the Mearsheimer and Walt tandem, the critics of Israel and the Zionist lobby and so forth. But you get the idea that there's this front also. Benny Gantz, the general who heads up the Israeli Defense Force, says it's time for a new war in Gaza. Now, why? What possible threat do you see? Oh, I'm sure they have one. It seems to me this is a desire to goad somebody into responding. So all of this stuff adds up to big trouble. And again, the thing that I would stress again is if the dollar begins to slide, that's when you better hold on to your hat, because that's when this option of having a war, closing the straits, and jacking up the price of oil becomes a means to stabilize the dollar almost immediately, overnight. You could see the price of oil shot up even on this exchange of compliments between the U.S. and Iran over the Gulf. The other thing we have going on, in Egypt, it's interesting, even the generals, right, even Field Marshal Tantawi is nationalist enough to want to shut down these U.S.-backed non-governmental organizations and their incessant meddling in the internal affairs of Egypt. In particular, Madeleine Albright's vehicle, the National Democratic Institute. This is the charming lady who said that a million dead Iraqis was a worthwhile price to pay with the economic sanctions during the 1990s as a means of getting to democracy and containing Iraq. Now, at least some Arabs have decided that she is persona non grata, and a bunch of other of these hypocritical foundation-funded U.S. NGO operations, most of them intelligence fronts. The other thing we have to look at is big article in the Washington Post this week, Wednesday, December 28th, about Obama, the drone president, right? Is he the food stamp president? Is he the jobs president? Is he the education president? None of those. Under Obama, a drone network. He's the drone president. And we've gone beyond the Predator drones. We now have the Reaper drones. And the Washington Post helpfully publishes a map where the drones are based and where they are operating. And I'll just mix them all together. This is the list of countries that are involved in this, either where the U.S. has based these drones or where their operations are ongoing. Turkey, Iraq. Turkey is obviously a threat to Syria. We probably assume that some of those flights are already going over Syria, maybe going over Lebanon too. So anyway, Turkey, they don't list Syria. I would list it. Iraq, of course. Iran, right? We know that because they succeeded in bringing one down. Afghanistan, it's notorious. Pakistan, even more so, even greater issue. Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and actually let me include Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Oman, all of those get drones. Yemen for sure, right? The al-Awlaki cases. Ethiopia, Somalia, the Seychelles. So this is a pretty good size piece of the world. So the Ark of Crisis, as Brzezinski would have called it, is now the Ark of Drones, and the U.S. is killing people left and right. Well, if you sow the wind, maybe you will reap the whirlwind. This is, again, incalculable folly, the harvest of hate being generated by this cowardly means of attacking even alleged enemies, attacking wedding parties half the time, or shepherds. Absolutely unacceptable. And where's Obama in the middle of this? The interesting quote is, Obama himself is, quote, oddly passive in this world, unquote, says a top official quoted by the Washington Post article. So that's the world as 2011 comes to an end. It's become more dangerous as a result of the year of the dupes. Now, we will have the continuation of the financial crisis. Notice Spain. We've had a couple of years of austerity in Spain, right, under Zapatero. And now we find that instead of being 6% of the gross domestic product, the Spanish deficit is going to be 8%. The reason why is that austerity doesn't work. It never works. You cut the budget this year, the deficit is bigger next year because you're in a depression. Government represents a large part of economic activity. You've got to increase that part. You've got to seize the central bank and use that to get the private sector going. But if you simply cut the government part of it, then you get a worse depression. And, of course, Spain is now languishing, writhing under the reactionary Rajoy regime with the Lehman Brothers veteran as the finance minister. Isn't that great? Now, we've also got a possible U.S. debt ceiling crisis coming up in the early part of the new year. It's possible. We're back again, right? 6 months later. This looks quite ugly, and we'll see where that goes. Obama has named 2 new people for the Federal Reserve. One of them is a Republican by the name of Jay Powell. So Obama, the great leftist, the great extreme champion of the 99%, puts a Republican on the Federal Reserve Board. Pathetic. We'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.